In this video, I'm going to share with you something I've never shared on Law Venture before. In particular, you're going to see my exact business model for how my personal injury law firm gets clients without spending any money. Yeah, this one is potentially game changing, so you want to keep watching. Welcome to Law Venture, a channel devoted to lawyers and future lawyers. My name's Jarrett Stone. I'm the owner of Stone Firm PLLC. But more specifically, in this video, I'm going to hopefully change some business model concepts for all my personal injury lawyers out there who are either solo, have their own law firm, or are hoping to get to that point. And I'm excited about this one because truly what I'm going to share with you is the foundation to my personal injury practice. In particular, let's start with the traditional concept that I thought marketing was as a lawyer, at least what I thought was going to be the most effective route. And it ended up being a pretty linear route to where I thought, okay, there's a PNC, a potential new client out there, or maybe there's all these potential new clients out there. And what happens is at this point in time, they're in a car wreck and they need a lawyer. They need me. And once they sign up with me, then at that point, I'll get them in contact with the provider so they can go treat for their personal injuries. Part of the struggle here was, okay, how do I insert into this picture? How do I get this PNC? It's going to have to be a lot of marketing and a lot of let's say brand awareness as the best way to frame this. And by brand awareness, what I mean by that is being on social, and maybe you're not spending any money on ads, but you're posting a ton of content in order to grow your reach more and more, and then subtly plugging in the fact that you're a lawyer with a PI firm. At least that was my initial goal. And over time, as I was practicing as a lawyer, I started realizing that it's not a linear model, it's a little bit different. So what really ends up happening is that in this scenario, they need me and they need a provider. Now, some people, they are prioritizing their health. In doing so, there's an emphasis with going to a provider first. Other people, they're concerned about being able to pay for these medical bills. And so because of that concern, they want to talk to a lawyer first. I really started to see things a whole lot clearer because I'm focusing now on getting clients through the providers. It's hot in the office today. I need to turn the AC up. So once I started focusing my energy on the provider, I started getting clients indirectly from the provider. And guess what? The beauty of it was I was spending no money. This cost me nothing. Instead, it was the provider who was spending the money and the energy to acquire that patient from their perspective, but from our perspective, the potential new client. Contrast that with trying to get the potential new client directly. In this scenario over here, I'm having to compete with those big dogs with a massive marketing budget. I don't like that. I don't want to compete with them. I don't want to spend money. Instead, I would much rather spend the energy in order to build that relationship with the provider, because once it's built, then it's pretty easy to maintain moving forward, and you start getting the benefits of not spending any money, getting the client, and then ultimately knocking it out of the park for everyone. And that's sort of the pitch right there, because you're probably asking yourself, Jarrett, how did you build the relationship with the provider? Well, basically, I would reach out to specific providers, and in doing so, I would explain to them, we need to throw away this linear model to where either you're in the middle or I'm in the middle. Instead, we need to look at it as there are three players on this team. Player number one is your patient or the potential new client. Player number two or three is going to be the lawyer, and let's just say the third one is the provider, in no particular order. We're all working together towards the same goal here, which is getting the potential new client or your patient the care and the money that they need, doing the same for you, and also doing the same for the law firm as well. So if we work together, it's going to be a win-win-win. Now, I really started to, let's say, perfect the pitch here over time. In fact, if you're curious on what the specific pitch was, then you're gonna have to check out the PI playbook, because I have a module devoted to exactly how I would present this to providers, make it a no-brainer for me to join their team, and ultimately the rest of the PI playbook shows exactly how to execute the game plan that you're going to tell the provider. So if you want to know what that pitch is, again, I'll slide a link that comes up above that should take you to the PI playbook so you can learn some more. But the point here that I'm really trying to illustrate is once you build that connection, you start focusing that energy on the provider, then you can start reaping the benefits. So let's maybe transition a little bit to the actual practical growth of my practice, and maybe previously, before I went solo, the connections that I had. Before I went solo, there were 2 connections that I made. I was trying to build my referral network prior to going solo so I could eventually go solo by having a flow of cases, a stream of cases already in place. I have a video on when's the right time to start your own personal injury practice. That was a big indicator of, yeah, now's the time for me to go solo. Once I started realizing I'm bringing in quite a good amount of cases, let's say. So check out that video if you haven't already. So pre-solo phase, there were 2 providers that I connected with, and both of these providers were chiropractors. 2 totally separate chiropractors in 2 totally separate locations. So let's go ahead and say we have provider or chiro number 1, chiro number 2. And they were sending me cases. But over time, eventually, chiro number 1 ended up hiring a chiropractor for his practice. He was growing his practice because he was bringing in all these patients, whether they were car wreck patients or non-car wreck patients. He was bringing in these patients, and every now and then when he had that car wreck patient, he's like, Jarrett's my guy. You need to go give him a call in order to get taken care of. Number 2 over here, I was also his exclusive lawyer as well. In fact, at some point I represented his family who was involved in a car wreck. And so that's how I knew, okay, yeah, I'm really part of the team at this stage. So fast forward a little bit, I end up going solo. And notice what's going on here. At this point in time, I have cases only coming from 3 sources here. Chiro number 1, chiro number 2, and chiro number 3. And that was enough for me to really have a solid foundation of income flowing in. During this time, what ended up happening, to show you kind of the organic growth of how, if you take care of your people, of your team, and you have a lot of wins stacked up, they are going to want to keep that team in place. You want to have a dynasty. So what ended up happening was chiro number 1, he still has his practice, and chiro number 3 actually started his own practice, and chiro number 2 has been doing his thing. So we now have 3 chiropractic offices in this scenario. Chiro number 1, well, he ended up hiring a replacement and hired another chiro eventually, and then he recently hired another chiro on top of that. All of these chiropractors work with me. They have my cell phone number. I text them on a regular basis, talking updates and also just having fun with them as well. And then chiro number 3, who ended up branching out and starting his own chiropractic office, well, he ended up hiring his own chiro as well. And I think he maybe has another one on the way. I make a point to reach out to all these newbies to make sure that they are comfortable working with me, and I educate them again on that win-win-win scenario that I was talking about earlier that you can see in the PI playbook that was sliding above. And since I can't slide the same link twice, I'll put a link in the description for you to check out. Chiro number 2 opened up another location, and so I'm gonna just like draw him bigger. But this man is just like puts the team on his back, and he hasn't hired anyone else to help lighten the load, but he's bringing in more and more patients. Over time, on top of this, I've also developed, I'll say, quasi relationships with other providers and chiropractors to where they send me the occasional case here and there, but it's not as devoted, I'll say, as these 7 chiropractors that have historically been sending me as many people as they can. And so I'm going to exclude the fringe chiropractors and providers because it's not as consistent as I would like. But what's funny is some of the fringe ones, I have close relationships with them to where one of them, whenever they have any type of legal trouble, actually two of them, whenever they have any type of legal trouble, whether it's personal or whatever, I'm their first phone call. But the point here that I really want to illustrate and emphasize is that starting with only 2 strong connections has over the years led to a total of 7 strong connections of people who are basically a business, right? Like, you know, you have the Jay-Z line of, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. Well, that's how chiropractors treat themselves, to where they're trying to market themselves in order to grow their patient list, in order to ultimately grow their reach as much as possible. And in doing so, they're sweeping up all of these car wreck cases and they're sending them all to the same person, which is me. And guess what the grand total of me having to pay for these clients have been over the years? You should know the answer at this point. It's been $0. Man, it is scorching in my office today. I feel like I'm sweating. What I've shown you thus far on this 2 chiropractors growing into more chiros, and I've mentioned the fringe providers that also send me some cases. Let's just look outside of that snapshot very briefly, because as I'm getting more and more clients, I've talked about this in other videos, I'll maybe slide a link above, I'm also knocking those clients' cases out of the park. And as a result of that, I'm turning those clients into walking billboards, and they are turning into referral sources as well. But it all is built on the provider foundation, which is why you really need to focus your energy, in my opinion, on those relationships as a team overall. Now, I do want to pivot a little bit, go less from teaching, more into just open discussion. Here are just my confessions and my thoughts. So there is no doubt in my mind that I could scale my law firm's success and I could scale the amount of clients coming in if I implemented my own strategies on more providers, build those connections with more providers, have more cases coming in. But I've been self-sabotaging. The fact that whenever I'm allowing this organic growth to compound on itself, it's going to have a rubber meets the road moment of the workload is going to be too much for me to be able to do everything I need to do for my law firm. At that point, I'm going to have to start bringing in personnel. And I've been avoiding that for as long as possible. If I'm just being totally candid and if I'm thinking out loud right now, the issue that I have is that at this point in my career, I love being a lawyer who's in the trenches, right? I'm very hands-on, I do everything. But if I start bringing in more personnel, then I'm transitioning from lawyer to boss and marketer. So at this point in my career, I'm not quite ready to make that transition. I still want to gain some wisdom, gain some experience, because I think in the long run, the more experience and wisdom that I have, not only will it help Law Venture, but I don't want to cap my experience prematurely, and as a result, cap what I can impart on personnel for the law firm and maybe hold my law firm back. That may be, I don't know, thinking a little bit too small. And again, if you have a approach, philosophy, or thoughts on this, let me know in the comment section down below. But the overall point of this video is that what I'm showing you here can be extremely scalable and beneficial for you and your law firm. Combining this business model with the approaches and strategies in the PI playbook can take your personal injury practice to the next level. And it's one of those things to where the more you put into it, the more you're going to see back, especially because as you're receiving these referrals, you shouldn't be spending any money. And that means that you should be able to put that money to better use to help grow your law firm even more. But just keep in mind, you may run into a similar issue, thought process that I have, which is, do you want to keep scaling and potentially scale yourself out of being a lawyer in the trenches? That I'll leave up for you to decide. Now, if you have any questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, or if you just want to say hi, leave that in the comment section down below. If you're still watching, I appreciate you. Help me reach more people by hitting the like button down below. Allows the video to rank a little bit more higher in the grand scheme of things. And with all that said, I think we should just wrap this bad boy up. So I'll see you in the next video.